I'm only human, right? So it's only logical that, you know, when you've got no accelerator pedal, no shifter linkages, everything's in a state of disarray, then the thing that you concentrate on next is actually trying to get the engine running. So that's what I'm going to do. Why? Because, hey, I want to hear this thing make some sound. Now, I might be setting myself up for disappointment, but it shouldn't be too hard. So what I've done in the meantime, I've just done I clearanced that bit of inner guard for the sway bar. A bit hard for you to see there, but no longer rubs and scrubs and all that sort of stuff. It's a pretty neat cut, but I'll clean it up later, like I said prior. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to just get, I've got all the wires and pipes and things just sort of cable tied together out of the way, just so they didn't get damaged in the moving process and all that sort of stuff. So I'll try and work out where the vacuum hoses go. Most of them are connected anyway. I've got to put a new fuel pipe in it from the tank. I've renovated the tank. There is a video on that. I haven't posted it yet because it's not great quality, so you may or may not see that. And let me know if you do want to see it, even if it's a poor quality video. If you want to see how I renovated a rusty tank with pinholes in it, let me know in the comments and I'll put it up there. But just be warned, it's not fabulous quality video, but it is video. So yeah, I'll tidy all this stuff up, get it out of the way, connect the fuel pipe, run that through, as I said, put some water in it. I'm a little bit concerned about putting water in it. I'm not going to put coolant in it because it's got to get flushed 1,000 times. Putting some water in it and flushing it through. Bit concerned because I know that this engine's going to have rust in it. It's an old iron block motor, that's what they do. So I don't want to block up my radiator. So I'll probably stick the hose in and flush it through as much as I can with the hoses off, and just try and flush as much loose stuff out as I can, fully expecting that the radiator's going to get junk in it. So I fully expect to have to take the hoses off this several times, stick a hose in the bottom of the radiator, flush the stuff, push it back up out of the top so that it doesn't block up the cores. It's just what I need to do. At some point I will put radiator flush through it, but that'll be further down the track, and at some point I will definitely put coolant in it. I'll also consider changing the water pump and the thermostat and all that sort of stuff as well, but that's down the track. I just want to make noise at the moment. So yeah, I've got hoses and that's right, yeah, earth straps, power straps, all that sort of stuff. They're all red, which is nice. Here, and yeah, I have heard this thing running before. Hasn't been for a while, but hey, I know it runs. So less talk, more work. Let's do it. Okay, as a plane flies overhead, just sort of untangling the wires and things a little bit. Haven't done a lot, but I'm making inroads. But what I did realise was that the dipstick tube was squashed underneath the steering column, because I clearly squashed it underneath the steering column. So I'm pretty sure this bend's not supposed to be in there. So I'm going to try and unbend it. So the reason I'm showing you this is, let's see if I snap it. So I'll put you on hold and I'll show you whether I succeed. Well, it's straighter. Didn't snap it. Let's see if it fits. Okay, so I took care of that quick job of just straightening out the dipstick tube and so on. So that quick job being about 45 minutes, because that's what a quick job is. And look at that, even fixed the dipstick bit on the transmission. And yes, I managed to snap that one, so that's got a cable tie on it. That's cool. I like this. This is a bit of custom. I'm stuck on something. This is a bit of custom stuff here. So I've got a vacuum hose here, which I'm not really sure what it does, but I like the use of windscreen washer hose on it. That's good. So maybe I can pressurize my windscreen washers, or actually it won't pressurize, it'll work the opposite way. It'll suck all the water into the engine. So that'll work well. I'm caught on this thing again. Holes in close. I like this. This is a bit of a custom touch that I noticed. This is the twin fuel filter model. It's better for fuel economy and it gives performance at the same time. But in all seriousness, this is probably a telltale sign that when someone was playing around with this, they were concerned that the fuel tank had junk in it. So I'm happy that I've now got a renovated fuel tank in this, and I'm putting new fuel hoses in, fuel pipes. So I'm going to I'll use one of these at the moment, whichever one seems to be less blocked, and we'll work with that. So I can remove this big length of hose just here and just basically pop that over there. I do have this vacuum hose coming off the base of the carby here. Not really sure what it does. I think I've got the right one on the booster. So maybe this is pollution gear or something. Not really sure. That's okay, it's blocked off, so it's not going to do anything to worry me at the moment. But I'm pretty close. I didn't realise how much of the loom I actually had with this. So I've got the headlight socket here. Runs across, there's sort of bits of wires and stuff hanging off everywhere, but there's a flasher can, a relay, there's a major socket down here, down the bottom there, which I presume goes under the back of the fuse box. So if it does, then I may just grab an original fuse box, if that's what it is. If it's not, let me know, because I really don't know what it is. Headlight socket over here. I'll renew all this, but only if it needs renewing, because quite frankly it's not horrible. There's some joint wires and stuff like that, but it's not horrible. And yeah, so for the time being, when I get this thing running, I'll just set the battery over here somewhere, because that's where it wants to sit, and I presume on the Holden. I really can't remember. I presume on a Holden the battery's over there. So yes, I'm pretty sure it is. So that's okay, we'll work with that. I'm pretty confident here. I'll sort this fuel filter situation out. I'll put a fuel pipe in, which sounds easy. I'll be crawling underneath the truck in the same position, but that's okay. I'll get that connected up, and you know what? I don't know. I might even get excited and put some petrol in the fuel tank and go from there. Weld, cut, grind, drive. That's what they say. Hey, not in that order though. Cut, weld, grind, drive. Get it right, Todd? It also wouldn't be right of me not to point out the little things. The difference between a car that's going to win a show and a car that's not. When you're putting hose clamps on, always make sure they're orientated the same way. You'll lose points when you're being judged if you don't do that. So it's just a little tip, just that sort of thing that I like to point out. It's through my wealth of experience of building show cars. And of course, when you delete the the heater, when you delete the heater, don't short the hose, just leave like a metre of hose and let it just flap around in the breeze, because it's those details. Not everyone can do that. And the same as your throttle return spring. Have it as long as you possibly can from one point to another. Have it stretched, and then vacuum hoses and things running through, and some random bracket that's probably upside down from some other... Seriously, guys, you think I'm joking? Take it seriously. You've got to look for this detail in your builds. You won't see that in someone else's build. Rightio. So I've jacked it up. Get the wheel off. So that I've got a little bit of space under there. So always make sure that when you jack your truck up on sloping driveway and you've got the rear wheels on dollies, that you don't let it roll back. Now, I didn't have to worry about that because it's already resting up against the front of the house from the last time it rolled back. So safety first, people. Don't muck around with it. So as I'm looking in here, I have looked in here before, but a long time ago, I can see that nothing needs replacing. The discs are good, so therefore I can pretty much be guaranteed that the brake pads are good. All steering and suspension components are in perfect condition. All the split pins, cotter pins, whatever you want to call them, are there. The boots are good. The bump stops are in ideal condition. The sway bar bushes, like perfect really. I'm blessed. It's just absolutely fantastic really. So I'm just going to take the punt that nothing else needs replacing either. Like none of the steering joints, the ball joints, the tie rod ends, anything like that. It's got really nice shiny super low springs, or some sort of spring. What are they? They're King's lowered springs anyway. I'll look at the part number and see what they are. If you know what KHFL25 is, whether it's low, super low, whatever it is, let me know. Yeah, so all good. But more importantly, I'm under here at the moment to see that there's also no split pins in the ball joints either. Excellent, right. So oh yeah, and I've already got the exhaust done on this as well, as you may see. It's got extractors or headers, and I've got just dumped before the diff. In fact, I've got it dumped just before the front cross member, just after the firewall, because that's what you do. And this one, the passenger side one, it's on a nice angle sort of across the bottom of the transmission pan as well. That's what happens when you pick things up with a forklift. Okay, so that's the fuel tank. That's the brace that I had to lengthen just there. I've still got to rubber insulate those straps, so don't be concerned about that. I put rubber between the strap and the fuel tank. So that hose just there comes from the pickup. So it's just a bit, 300 or 400 mil long, and it's going to point over in this direction somewhere eventually, I guess. Probably get those tabs just there on the chassis. Focus. Just there, where the brake pipe is. That to me looks like it's supposed to hold a fuel hose, fuel pipe, through one of these holes here. So that's what I'm going to do. It sounds good. I'll just make sure it's insulated everywhere it goes through a hole, and I'll use P clips to hold it on. Whether I do all that right now, I don't know, because I've still got to paint this chassis, so I'll probably just run some pipes at the moment just to get it run. Now I could run this off a jerry can, but hey, I'm under here, might as well make some fuel pipes. And I think that's what all those clamps here are for, I would guess. So yeah, I'll run that up through there. This exhaust is nice and squashed and it's got holes in it. I could say we'll be replacing that. Okay, now while I'm under here, this is really awkward to film, so my apologies. While we're under here, this is the cab mounts. If you've seen the earlier videos, you saw me making it, saw me sort of getting it in place. But so this is the back driver's side. See, this is the rail that's sitting on the original Holden rubber mounts up the front, Holden rubber mount at the back. And there's the cross member that ironically goes across. This is the Holden rear cross member that I flattened out the top and replated. See that from underneath there. And so this is the other side. Again, the gusseting, bracing, so on. So I'm happy with it. I think it works well. And then up the front, that's the outrigger, as I call it. So that's the the chassis, the rail, main rail, and the outrigger with gusseting. And I'll try and get under here. Maybe this side might be easier to film. So this is the other side, the passenger side. So that's looking at the bottom of one of those outriggers. So haven't got all the bolts in there yet. I've actually got to realign a couple of the holes, but I think you can probably see a bit there. So I think the one in the middle there, I've got to realign it. Doesn't quite line up, but I think there's 6 bolts in there from memory. So that bolts to the cross brace on the cab there. So this thing's mounted well and truly. It's not going anywhere. So again, that's the original Holden pickup points on the chassis, and that's my subframe sitting on top of it. So that's where the bolts go in underneath there. Same, yeah, one over there. So what was I doing? That's right, fuel pipes. Let's get back to that. So this is the fuel pipe that I'm going to be using. I'd love to say that I could remember what size it is, but I really don't know. I don't know, 1/4 inch. I guess I don't know. It's fuel pipe. It's this stuff here. What is it? Aeroflow. I was looking for the size on it, but I can't find it. It's a economical brand, I guess is the way to put it. It's fuel pipe, so I'm happy to use it. And this is an economical build, so that's okay. Some things it's okay to minimise your costs. No, can't see any size. So I'm going to use this. I bought it for another project, which I never ended up using it for. Can't remember why, but it's there, so I'm going to use it. So yeah, what I'm going to do, first thing I'm going to get this, and I'm going to work out roughly how much I need, which it needs to go from there to there. So what's that? I don't know, 3 meters, 2.5 meters. I'll get it, and I'm just going to straighten it out. So I'll just put you on time lapse, and you can just see I'm going to do that. It's nothing fancy. I'm just going to put it in the vise and manually straighten it. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to get some welding wire. So welding wire lengths are like, I don't know, 758, 800 mil long or something. And I'm going to make a shape. So I'm going to just get the welding wire and bend it to shape in individual pieces underneath, and I'll sort of tape it together. Rather than try and snake wrangle this thing underneath the truck, I'll make it in short lengths, and then I'll join it all together, and then I'll shape that up to fit into where I think it's meant to go. So I'll show you that as I do it. Okay, and this is the rough but reasonably accurate template of the fuel pipe. So I've just put pieces of wire together, bent them to approximately the shape I want them, and taped them together. So this part goes up over the front cross member into the fuel pump, the rubber hose, comes down under the firewall about here, then along the chassis rail, and then it comes to the back just in front of the fuel tank, comes through a hole in the chassis, kicks up a bit, comes across the face of the fuel tank, and then comes back, and the rubber hose on the fuel tank goes in there. So it's got some bends that are a little bit funny, and up around this part here, it's all a bit of a funny shape, but it doesn't matter. What it does, it tells me how long I need the piece of pipe to be, and it shows me where I need to put the main bends. Now, some of it, like this part here, is going to be a little bit tricky to get through the hole and around the corner and so on. So some of it I will bend to where I need it to be, and then once it's under the car, I'll actually sort of unbend it to a certain extent and then bend it back into shape. But the initial bends will at least remind me, or help me bend it once it's under there. I don't know exactly the route that these fuel pipes are supposed to take, but I think I'm using logic here. Well, I am using logic, whether it's the right logic. So I've got this, I've undone the fuel tank straps, just got it held up with a jack stand. I'm going to run the pipe across the front here, in between the strap and the tank, which there is an airspace created there once it happens, so it's not going to rub on anything. That's super important. When you're doing fuel pipes and brake pipes, you want to make sure that it's not going to rub on anything. So if it's near something, fasten it, and I think you've got to fasten these and brake pipes about every 300 mil onto the chassis and so on. Keep it away from things, make sure it's not going to get crushed by suspension, not too close to the exhaust and all that sort of stuff. Now that's the brake hose running through just there, that one there. The handbrake cable runs through that hole there, on this side and on the other side, so I don't want to go through there. So I do need to be careful that the handbrake cable doesn't interfere with the brake pipe or the fuel pipe. So the fuel pipe will run through that hole, and then it'll clip on the chassis along the side, along here. It'll come along through here. That's the brake pipe just in the background there. It'll come along here, come on up over the top of the chassis rail. You can actually see a clip just there, and that clip, or the broken clip just, where are we? Just there. I'm not sure if that's brake hose or fuel hose, but it was something holding onto the chassis. And then when I come down here, so this is my fuel pipe. Where is it? This is my fuel pipe, my fuel rubber hose, just here. You'll have to believe me, just there. So I'm going to run it across the top of the chassis cross member, not too close to the headers, but I'll clip it onto one of these existing holes as far away from the headers as I can, and then across the top of the chassis rail, and then down sort of the same path as what this brake pipe's going. So down across there. So it'll be safe, it won't get knocked around from underneath, won't rub on things and so on. So I'm going to work out how long this is, and I can just use a piece of string to do that. I can get a piece of string, run it along the side of this, hold it in place, then I will know how long that is, and transfer it, and then I can start bending. Okay, so from my piece of string I've worked out that I need this piece of pipe to be about that long. So I've already made that piece of string about 200 millimeters longer than what my pieces of wire were, just so that I'm not working too tight to it, and then I can just cut off any excess that I need to. But if I make it too short, then it's just a pain. So this is a pipe cutter. You can cut this with, I guess, a hacksaw or a hacksaw. Pipe cutter is a good thing to have. It's that quick and easy. It makes a nice neat cut on the pipe. You can go through and deburr it as well. That's just a matter of getting this, and this obviously isn't my pipe, that's the pipe there. But getting this and just going through and just cleaning up the burr from the inside of the pipe, so that it doesn't block the flow. And I'll just get a file and just file the end of it as well, just to stop it being a little bit sharp, which it is. We're ready to start bending that up. Just as a bit of a side note, there's the question of how long is a piece of string. Now some of you are going to jump on and say it's twice the length from the middle to the end, but I'm going to tell you it's 137 feet, because that's what the sticker on this said when I got it. So that is the answer to that question. How long's a piece of string? 137 feet. Now you've got it. Heard it from me first. I've started bending this up. I didn't run you through the first steps because it's a little bit clumsy when you're first starting. But what I've done, I've just got my wire as it is taped onto the shape as it's coming out. Now, I'm not worrying about it being perfect, because what will happen is when I'm trying to put it in under the car, it's got to get a little bit bent anyway. But what I am trying to do is make each length of pipe the right length that I've worked out from my wire, and I'm trying to put the bend in as accurately and closely as I can to where it needs to be, so that when I'm under there I don't have to wrestle it too much. Now what will happen is that, you know, if this bend is too sharp or not sharp enough, then I can just adjust it. It actually bends by hand pretty easily, and this little curve in it here, I can straighten that out once it's there. But I'm not getting too fussed about that. I'm just trying to make it so that this piece is the right length and the angle, and then the next piece is the right length and the angle. Now what I have here, this little part here, just sort of ducks up, goes along for about 200 mil, then ducks back down, runs along, so it goes over the cross member, the gearbox transmission cross member, and then comes back down to the chassis rail, and then it goes along, comes across the front of the chassis and up the firewall. So I'm going to put you in a position where you might be able to see it. Now what you do find with this when you're bending this sort of pipe is that, like, it's actually quite long. What is it? It's probably 3.5 meters long, this piece of pipe that I'm working with. So when you're putting a 90-degree bend in it here, like, it's only, 150 mil down, you bend it and all of a sudden it wants to stick out towards me 3 meters, and then I put another bend in at the opposite direction and it wants to go down 3 meters. So you need a bit of space. So a confined workshop like this is not the idea. I actually started this in that vise there, working in the bigger space out there, but I've now brought it in here because I think that I can work with it more easily in here. So let's set you up so you can see what I'm doing. So I've got the fuel tank straps back in and got the fuel pipe running through here and around to here. Might shorten that a little bit, that rubber hose will go under that. Got it coming down over here. Don't be concerned if you can see it close to things. This bracket's going to be removed. I'm going to insulate around here and so on, so don't be concerned about that. But it is important to do. So I've got it running through here. I have a feeling that I probably was supposed to run it over the top of the chassis and down, but that's okay. It works there. I'll be able to make it secure. It'll do the job. I probably just made it a little harder for myself than it needed to be. So now I'm under here. So this is it coming down from the top of the tank through that hole that I was just talking about. The reason I think maybe I was supposed to run it over the top was this bracket just here. This clip, I have a feeling it might have supposed to have come through here somewhere and clipped into that clip and then come around, which would have been a lot easier, but it is what it is. So I've just picked up any old broken clip that happened to be here. Got to secure the brake pipes when I make new ones as well. So now these are all just sort of hanging through here. I actually took the cross member, or unbolted the cross member and lifted it up so I could get the pipe in there rather than try and bend it into a million pieces. So I can shape this more accurately when the time comes. Again, I'm going to pull the cab off this, pull the motor out, clean the chassis up and everything, so I'll make this neat and tidy then. I'm just being impatient at the moment, is literally the truth, because I want to get the thing up and running off its own fuel tank. So I've got it going up over here. It will be sitting closer to that chassis rail, but you can see it following its path up there. Oh, actually that's not where it's going to go. I've got it sticking up out of the engine bay, so I'll show you. So it's popping up here past the steering and so on. It's actually going to go down lower, but what I wanted to show you was I've flared the end of the pipe, and I'll do the same on the fuel tank end as well, and I'll show you why. Because what you have with the pipe is that it's smooth. So you put a rubber hose over that, which a lot of people do. You see it on transmission lines all the time when people put coolers on and so on, and I've personally had them blow off. So all I did was put a little flare in it. So this. Okay, well I hope you enjoyed that short video. Probably not the most exciting content in the world, but hey, without fuel the motor's not going to run. So what I've now got is a renovated fuel tank, new hoses, new pipes going to the fuel pump, and then from the fuel pump, new hoses going up to the carby. So the idea behind that was the next video that you're going to see after this one, it's an exciting one, we get the motor running. That's it, we get the motor running. And the idea is that I want it to run off its own fuel tank rather than off a jerry can. We achieved that. So the next video is going to come out very soon because it is a little, I guess, more interesting and exciting than what this one was. So it's a follow-up. It was too much content to put in one video. So it's two, and I'll put them out close together. Thanks for watching. If you could do me a favor, subscribe, share with a friend, give me a like, and throw me a comment. I like the comments. They're getting more and more. So much appreciated. I'll see you next time.